Welcome to today's episode. My name is Sanjeev Welling, CEO and co-founder of Avira Digital. At Avira, we specialize in helping life sciences organization transform the medical affairs to digital platform, integrated evidence strategies, AI-powered insights. So I'm excited today to be joined by Alex Condoleon, Chief Medical Affairs Officer for Medical Engagement and Impact at Pfizer. In his role, he's responsible for building the true data driven end to end medical customer engagement organization, bringing the teams together on medical analytics and channel excellence. With such a broad role, I'm really excited, looking forward for diving into today's conversation about integrated data, AI in medical affairs. With this, Alex, I would love our listener to hear directly from you. And could you introduce yourself, give your background and the current role before we get into more detailed discussion?
Yeah, Sanjeev, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Look, I'm definitely someone who's passionate about medical affairs. I've spent most of my 20 years in industry in medical affairs, but especially, I would say, for the last 7 years, I've really been focused at the intersection of digital and our industry. And I think that's an important conversation for us to be having, because whether we're thinking about how to magnify the impact of medical affairs, what the future of healthcare delivery is going to look like, how R&D is going to be made more efficient and more productive, tech is going to play a role. And that to me is saying collectively, we're learning, we're loading our organizations with new capabilities, and we're going to get to a point where we leverage these capabilities to do even better work than what we do every day. So pleasure to join you on the discussion today.
Fantastic. The medical affairs organizations manage vast amount of data across analytics, MSL insights, contents, digital health. What do you see as the biggest opportunities? I would love to hear the barriers as well for creating that integrated data-driven approach to medical engagement.
I've got to say, this is a moment where I feel a mix of emotions. I feel excitement about what we're all having to embrace. I also feel a little bit nervous because we're in a moment where digital advances are challenging how we need to think about engagement with medical stakeholders. There's a lot to that. The life of healthcare professionals today, it's complicated and it's getting even more complicated. Sometimes that's because of what we do. In many other cases, it's because of how we are all choosing to digest healthcare today. Just a few anecdotes, Sanjeev. The speed at which science is moving at the moment is profound. Now, that means that all of us are coming to market with new products and we're solving important unmet needs. We just need to recognize that every time we solve a need state, we also create complexity. What I mean by that is that every time there's a new therapeutic option, a new way of doing diagnosis and getting even more specific, that introduces complexity into already complex treatment paradigms. That drives fragmentation of an already fragmented healthcare system. That's one big element that we really need to recognize when we think about the experience of healthcare professionals and how they might want to engage with industry on their terms. There's the speed at which digital is advancing. And I think we can't understate it. I'm going to give a couple of examples to you. Are they fair comparisons? No. But do they give us a wake-up call about how fast the world is moving to tech adoption in this current wave of innovation? Yes. In the US, it took over a decade to get more than 90% of HCPs onto e-prescribing platforms. More than a decade. We can understand the reasons for that. And yet then you look at ChatGPT, which within 5 days had 1 million users. Within 2 months had 100 million users. So there's something in the velocity of change at the moment that makes us really need to understand the experience of stakeholders that we're wanting to communicate and engage with, rethink our approaches. And to bring that full circle to where your question was heading, I just fundamentally am confident that data, analytics, AI, these are all foundational to how we are going to be engaging more effectively in the complexities of the world in which we all operate today. These aren't just buzzwords. I think we had an era where innovators would promise great things in their vision, would try really hard to recognize them, but often we were a little bit like, did that really work as well as I expected it to? We're now at a point where a lot of this technology has matured. We are digesting and living it every day, and there is a role for it in healthcare. That for medical affairs teams is going to mean building new muscle, because
Absolutely.
leveraging data, analytics, AI to optimize how we think about prediction, about personalization, about empowerment as three big themes, I think are highly relevant to how medical affairs is emerging into a new era of what content dissemination and customer engagement or medical stakeholder engagement is looking like. I think that's exciting, and it's going to challenge us at the same time to rethink how we get results.
Absolutely. I was just noting down a few things which you mentioned, and it's really exciting to see these innovations with this data and integrations and all. My next question is going to be around the Gen AI. With the rapid advancement and adoptions of Gen AI, as you correctly said, with ChatGPT and many other platforms attracting so many HCPs. When you look at the AI in medical affairs, what do you consider the true impact use cases? Have you seen anything about strategic decision making changing? Maybe your launch readiness, maybe your evidence planning, maybe your patient engagement, as opposed to the routine operational use cases that might improve speed or efficiencies. I would love to hear your perspective, and viewers will love that.
That's not a straightforward question. We might need to unpack that. First thing is, like you've called out, we shouldn't be having a conversation like this and not talking about the disruptive potential of large language models. Today we talk about Gen AI, but it's going to be pretty soon that we're talking about agentic AI. And who knows what's coming after that? It's probably more in reach than what we realize today. To the point that you're calling out, Sanjeev, these are technologies which can enhance every step of what we're doing. That does include, I believe, having analytic informed medical strategies. It also goes to, in those strategies, can we get further insight on what our evidence planning should look like? Can we understand what the channel mix should look like? Can we understand who we are most effective in engaging? Can we get signals of impact? That virtuous loop, which can feed back and iterate on itself, can all be enabled by various forms of data, analytics, AI, and especially will have a strong role of large language models. It's important to say these aren't theoretical concepts. Let's just keep in mind that whether you're talking about ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the other options that are freely available to us all in the world, there was a recent report released by Bain that 70% of patients today at time of diagnosis are going to one of these large language models to get information on their health. 60% of healthcare professionals are already leaning on some sort of large language model in their search for information. It's also relevant to just think about the accuracy of these models. ChatGPT 4.0, which has already been superseded, has been able to demonstrate against the US medical licensing examination that it can achieve around about 90%. That's way above the human standard to pass the theoretic expectations to be an MD in the US. So you're dealing with this phenomenal wealth of knowledge. We've talked about seeking to amass and democratize data. These LLMs have leapfrogged that, accessed enormous amounts of data and put it in our hands. In fact, not just our hands, put it in the hands of clinicians, healthcare professionals all around the world, patients. And that means that we are dealing with a community who are innovating on their own terms, leveraging freely available technology. It is applicable to how we do our work. It can make us more effective. Your point goes to an important thematic, like where do we get started? Because I think the end point is that we're going to see the infiltration of these great advances across our entire value chain of work that we do. But where do we get started? It's important that we look for use cases that carry a good feasibility to them and that we think address a meaningful pain point. I'll talk at least to one thing which has been reported in Pfizer's annual report. We've certainly been able to see that when applied to the generation of first draft manuscripts, we've found that you can get a 45% cycle time reduction in first draft manuscript, a 15% end-to-end reduction in total manuscript timelines of development. That is meaningful. That means we're getting science in the hands of healthcare professionals earlier. Getting that to scale is another thing, but the proof point of the signal is there. Many use cases are being referred, so I give that as an anecdotal first one. I think what's equally important to call out is that today, technology is not our constraint. Our ability to drive change is our constraint. In other words, the winners are going to be organizations that have worked out how to build the capability so that people can interact with AI and not be replaced by AI. I would share with you an anecdote. If we view the latest waves of AI as being about outsourcing cognition, it might lead to some efficiency, but it doesn't improve clinical practice. It doesn't improve clinical standards of care. That's really not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is the augmentation of human potential. As medical affairs professionals, we're all very well educated. We have incredible subject matter expertise. And so we have to be thinking about AI as just an exaggeration, an augmentation of the intelligence that we already carry. Then we get to magnify our impact beyond what we're even able to do today. That's what I think is within reach. I don't think it's over-promising what we're going to actually start to feel and to recognize in the forthcoming handful of years. It's a big change on how we work today. That's a call out for healthcare leaders, healthcare innovators, all team members to really rethink how we can be more effective with these tools. That is going to be critical to how healthcare gets to move forward.
Alex, absolutely. With all the changes, the omnichannel engagement is also changing drastically with HCP engaging across so many touch points from the field interaction to digital channels. I would love to hear what are the most effective ways to leverage this AI from the personalization, the orchestration, the scale of this medical engagement. Would love to hear.
This has to be a discussion because there's no simple answer to this one, but there's a lot of opportunity. The big three thematics I go to, I mentioned a little bit earlier, which is prediction, personalization, and empowerment. Just to break them down a little bit, orchestration is all about prediction. It's all about anticipation. And that is somewhere that I think these latest advances are really going to be able to help us. Do we have the muscle to be able to anticipate where HCPs are seeking to be educated and to find information? If we do, can we be in those places? Can we be in those places at the right time with the right type of information personalized for that individual? Now we move from prediction to personalization, because the fact that we can anticipate that you will be in this channel, followed by this channel, followed by this channel, doesn't mean that everyone following that channel journey wants to digest the same content in the same form. And this goes to how do you get personalized content at scale? This is going to be a big area where all of this Gen AI is going to really come to bear to change the way we think about communications and scientific communications. Then we move into things like tonality, length, and where people are at on their own individual learning journeys. It's important, Sanjeev, to call out that this isn't theoretical. This is how we are all engaging today with big tech. This is why we find big tech pleasurable and adding value to our life. They've worked out that how they should communicate to you and me on exactly the same topic still needs to be different, even though trust has to be built into the beginning and fact needs to be reflected as fact. The way it's deployed is all important. I'm just optimistic that tech is going to get us there. I don't think in a world where we're seeing disruption in everything we do, healthcare is going to be pulled forward in a way that through precision, through personalization, we fundamentally get to a point where we empower healthcare professionals, patients, carers, families alike to play what role they can in healthcare delivery that leverages the highest potential of all those stakeholders. That takes off pressure from the healthcare system. It elevates where the focus of the human goes, It augments with tech wherever possible. I think that is a within reach goal that we can work to. It's going to take us time. It won't come overnight, but the feasibility is there. The desirability is clear. And I think there's a path that we're all going to be enriched by in the coming years.
Wow. You talked about tech enable, the data analytics. But Alex, to be honest with you, measuring the impact of medical affairs has always been challenging. How do you think this tech, data, AI, analytics can help to move this conversation from the activity based metrics to truly an impact to our patient, HCP, and the broader healthcare ecosystem? What's your view on it?
I'm going to start by saying something a little bit provocative, and I'm going to say, I believe we can measure the impact of medical affairs today. It doesn't mean we can measure every aspect of our impact. It means we can measure some of the impact. And if we're measuring what matters, that will make a difference to the impact we have. The reason that we're able to measure that impact is because of the maturity of data, the maturity of analytics. What's important for us to think about in getting signals or measures of impact is, why are we seeking to answer these questions? I think the best mindset that we bring to the table is to be endlessly seeking to improve clinical practice. What I mean by that is, it's not about looking at impact measures and trying to determine if it's telling us whether the work we're doing is good or bad, whether we would attribute results to factors outside of our modeling control. I don't think it's about that. I think having a learning mindset where we believe that continual reiteration of our strategic choices, continual reiteration of how we move towards personalization and engagement to enhance the way healthcare is delivered is only advantageous to us. It's fair to say that in healthcare, utopia might not exist, okay? There are endless need states. We don't have enough resource to hit them all. But within the constraints of how we do operate, having that endless willingness to do better is where I think impact measures get to play their most important role. It goes to the essence of what you're asking, Sanjeev. I think this means that we should never underestimate that when we are engaging with healthcare professionals, their time is precious. What we are learning with them is precious. In other words, all of the data coming out of interactions is precious and able to fuel us to go back to them in future engagements in an even more targeted way, a way that is relevant to them and how they are seeking to practice healthcare, how they are seeking to fundamentally lift the impact that they have. That's just a couple of the philosophies and the opportunities that I would call out. I would just say that our shift to being more impact driven is going to take a rethink of what the skill sets are that we need. It's going to take investment in digital infrastructure, in data collation, in analytic capabilities. These are all things which I think are good for medical affairs teams to be learning about. We see them all around us. We're great with data. We're great with statistical modeling. We're great with interpreting large bodies of scientific know-how. This is just a new form in a different version where we need to get great at understanding how even more diverse data sets fueled by even more complex computation models actually give us insight that can lead us to be effective. That's a learning journey I feel like we're all on, but it's a learning journey worth us all leaning in on.
Alex, there's a lot to learn from you in this entire process. I'm inspired by your launch of Dose of Innovation series.
Right.
What inspired you to start that series, and what key shift do you believe the medical affairs or across a pharma leader should be paying a closer attention to right now? Give your experience, differentiations of real healthcare innovators from the rest. What is your point of view on that? So
Yeah, thanks, Sanjeev, for bringing that up. On LinkedIn, I've decided to put pen to paper and to start trying to interpret what's going on and to learn from others. I fundamentally think we are in an incredibly unique moment where the speed of tech advancement, which in part is fueling the speed of scientific advancement, is on one hand great for healthcare, and on the other hand is really going to challenge us to rethink how we lead and how we choose to innovate. That for me was enough of a reason to build community. We're at a juncture where we can learn off each other and share the courage that it's taking to move healthcare forward. Because we know moving healthcare forward is hard, it's not easy. We can share lessons. Lessons are both our successes and failures, because sometimes winning is about being comfortable that you need to learn in order to avoid the missteps of those who are just one or two steps ahead of you. That's what drove me to come up with this thematic of dose of innovation. If I just articulate a little bit of a metaphorical analogy in the background of it, if innovation were a pill, we'd be prescribing it in doses. As it relates to digital's impact on healthcare, we're definitely just in phase one. We're getting the fundamentals right. We're learning what's worth scaling. We have this huge therapeutic window which is still ahead of us, but it won't stay open forever. That's a reason why there's a call to action. That's a reason why I think all of us can share what's working, what's not working, and in a way, keep pace with the way the world is evolving and make sure that we're doing it in a way that goes back to this theme of augmenting our potential, helping us and our teams be our best more often. If we get that equation right, tech will be in service of healthcare. That means that we're in a leading change posture rather than being stuck lagging the change and reacting to it. That's what's got me excited. I hope you're excited by it, Sanjeev. I know you've engaged with me sometimes on it. I'd welcome others who are passionate to please engage on it, because I just think we can help each other to think about the leadership posturing, the innovation posturing that's needed in a fast changing world where the net benefit can be great on healthcare. We just need to unlock that success formula somewhat together.
Yeah, I would love to continue to participate in that. We are all collectively learning to speed further the tech and the scientific innovation. Alex, I would love to hear the perspective from the leaders looking across the industry right now with the speed of tech and scientific, as you mentioned, evolving medical affairs in the next probably 3 to 5 years, especially with AI, real world, digital channels. If you could change one thing about how healthcare innovation is approached today, what would be that?
I would say we need to bring a daily dose of boldness to what we're doing with healthcare innovation. What I really mean by that is the opportunity is real. If we're standing still right now, we're falling behind. Yet driving change, it's not easy. It's never easy. As well as getting the skill sets right, as well as getting the mindset right, as well as really being connected to people, teams, partners in the ecosystem so that you can win hearts to drive change. I think it takes a daily dose of boldness. I think it takes courage. And I think that's something we need to be talking about, because that may just be part of the magic that separates those who lag versus those that lead. There are a lot of us that want to lead, a lot of us that are confident that medical affairs role is only going to become more and more critical in the forthcoming years. But in order to play that role, we're going to change. We're going to change to meet healthcare professionals where they're at, change to meet the challenges that are confronting us and the opportunities that are presenting to us through tech and tech's role in society, let alone just healthcare. So that's what's got me going, along with my daily coffee in the morning. What's that daily dose of boldness going to look like? We all turn up with the right mindset, the right courage, the right willingness to fail, learn, and hopefully move healthcare forward in a collective sense.
Fantastic. Alex, we covered so much on this episode. I really enjoyed conversation. The audience, thanks a lot for tuning in and hearing the evolving role of medical affairs, whether it's a practical applications, AI, integrated data. It's all changing the way we are going to interact in the future. I know our listeners will walk away with the valuable takeaways as they apply to their own roles in medical affairs and across the organization. Alex, thank you so much. Looking forward for more further conversation as we are exploring how digital data innovations are shaping up the future of pharma. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here, Sanjeev, and it's great to be exchanging ideas and learning from you. And thanks for getting me thinking today as well.
Thank you.